Hey, ladies and gentlemen, what is happening? Welcome to the live stream for studentloanjustice.org. We are the oldest, largest, first, and only true grassroots group fighting only and absolutely for student loan justice. Looking for my hat here. Oh, here's my hat. By the way, you can get your own distressed student loan justice trucker's hat at, I believe it is at there, Bitly. Thanks to Lisa in Los Angeles for making that happen, by the way. Super helpful. So if you're watching me tonight, you have student loans, you have no idea what you're going to do. The Biden student loan cancellation that we heard about doesn't impress you for whatever reason. Maybe you don't get it. Maybe this most recent thing screwed you because you're an FFLP borrower. Maybe $10,000 or even $20,000 is not even making a dent in your exploded loan balance. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am here to tell you, we've been doing this for many, many years. And the key to this whole scam, and it is a scam, these loans are a scam, lies in this unique stripping of bankruptcy protections away from these loans. It lies at the core of everything. You know, we've been doing this for 17 and a half years now. And for the first 15 years, we were fighting very moderately for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. Since COVID hit, since January 2020, or actually a little bit earlier, since just before COVID, we've been calling for the cancellation of all federally owned student loans by executive order. So you'd think we'd be thrilled with the Biden thing. We're not. We're not at all. And by the way, there are many shoes yet to drop with this Biden loan cancellation, where it's going to come to mean almost nothing for almost everybody and absolutely nothing for many, if not most. So the founding fathers called for uniform bankruptcy laws, guys. That was taken away from student loans. When you take bankruptcy away, when you take statutes of limitations from a lending instrument away, you create a license to steal. You weaponize the loans. This is what the founding fathers were worried about. We're seeing people, a woman in California borrowed $25,000. She's repaid $100,000 nearly on a $25,000 or $6,000 loan. She now owes $132,000. And I'm laughing because at this point, it's comedic. It's nonsense. These numbers are ridiculous. We don't have to take this shit, ladies and gentlemen. Pardon my French. So whatever your situation is with student loans, bankruptcy lies at the core of everything if you want something to change. If you actually want justice for your student loans, we can't count on Washington, D.C. to do essentially fake loan cancellation gimmick. It all comes down to us having the threat, the leverage of bankruptcy returned to us as it exists for all other loans, for all other borrowers. Nobody wants to file for bankruptcy, guys. And quite frankly, I think very few people will even have to when we get the right return. That doesn't matter. It's the leverage that is important. So ladies and gentlemen, and by the way, if you have any questions or comments, throw them out. If I can see them on Facebook or on Twitter, I will very happily respond to them as I see them. And if you're new to the group, welcome, by the way. I know already you're like, I don't want to file for bankruptcy. What's bankruptcy? I want my loans canceled. I know that's what a lot of people are saying. And I get that. And probably the most important policy point I have for you tonight, guys, is we've been looking at this for many years. And I can tell you that we're not going to see any meaningful loan cancellation. The most we will see is what we just saw with President Biden, this up to $10,000, up to $20,000 with Pell Grant. Cancellation gimmick that on paper it's supposed to help some people, but by the time, way after the election, by the way, by the time this loan cancellation is rolled out, it'll be dog shit. We have seen so many loan cancellation gimmicks rolled out by the Department of Education, and cumulatively, the success rate for these loan cancellation gimmicks And we're talking about like public service loan forgiveness. We're talking about the income contingent repayment program, the pay as you earn, revised pay as you earn, and even the borrower defense to repayment. The success rate of that is in the single digit percentage wise, like less than 10%. Like, quite frankly, it's closer to 1%. So 99%. Let's be generous and let's say it's a 90% at least rejection rate for these loan cancellations. Guys, this is exactly what the founding fathers wanted to avoid when they called for uniform bankruptcy laws in the Constitution. So the most important thing that I have to tell you tonight is we finally have great bills in both Senate and House. In Senate, it's S2598. In the House, this bill is just out. It got introduced last Thursday. I believe the press release should have come out for it today. It's HR 9110. Both of these bills are sponsored by the respective chairmen of the House and Senate Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler in the House, Dick Durbin in the Senate. Both of these bills should be, certainly the Senate one is, but the House bill also should be bipartisan. That is extraordinarily important, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're new to the group, we're a fiercely nonpartisan group. Essentially, we hate both parties for different reasons, but we hate them. So whatever your political stripes are, you're very welcome on this group. The only thing that we're fighting for is student loan justice. And that means right now, today, and in fact, the only thing that matters is these bills getting our bankruptcy leverage returned. We've seen all the tricks, all the traps in Washington, D.C. played on us, the borrowers, again and again and again and again. And the trick is to foist a fake loan cancellation on the citizens and keep bankruptcy gone. That is the trick. We saw it in 2008. We saw it in 2012. And here, quite frankly, I think we're seeing it again. These bills are perfectly positioned to pass, ladies and gentlemen. Historically, the Republicans have opposed us, by the way, so you know. All of the opposition to bankruptcy has essentially melted away. All of the public opposition to bankruptcy has essentially melted away. But we still are seeing some opposition to this legislation, ladies and gentlemen. And this is where we are at right now. We've got these two bills perfectly positioned to pass. I think they would pass with flying colors through both House and Senate if they were put up for a vote. But there are some groups that are opposing the Senate bill, certainly, namely historically Black colleges and universities. Now, this is sort of a rumor, but, it's more than a rumor, guys. It's true. I have it on good word that the HBCUs are either opposing or threatening to oppose our legislation. Now, there's a clawback provision in the Senate bill that requires colleges to reimburse the government up to 50% of the amount that it was originally borrowed. And the HBCUs apparently don't like that. And so they are threatening to oppose, or maybe they are actually opposing this legislation. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we've seen the Department of Education at work for many years, and the HBCU's concerns are completely unfounded. First of all, this is a slap on the wrist. It's up to 50% based on a sliding scale, based on default rates, repayment rates. But second of all, a few people should actually have to file for bankruptcy. Just the leverage of bankruptcy is probably going to be enough to make mountains move for us and finally get student loan justice writ large across the board, including for you sitting there. But even more than that, guys, we've seen any number of penalties come and go over the years. Like the gainful employment rule. It was supposed to be a slap on the wrist to the colleges. The Department of Education never enforced the gainful employment rule. They just never did. And similarly, there was a scandal 15 years ago where the lenders were ripping off the taxpayer for billions of dollars in illegally billed interest on certain student loans. It was called the 9.5% scandal. Many people don't know about that, but basically the lenders were recycling loans in this high interest loan category, and they were blatantly and illegally overbilling the government. Well, the Department of Education, their first response was, we're not going to make them pay back anything. or we're going to let them decide how much to pay back. So this is how it would happen with bankruptcy, guys. There certainly would be some bankruptcies. Colleges certainly would at least technically be on the hook to reimburse the government a small nominal amount for bankruptcy discharges. But ladies and gentlemen, the Department of Education would not even try to collect on the penalty. They just wouldn't do it. They've never done it. They didn't do it with gainful employment. They didn't do it with 9.5. They wouldn't do it now. And so the HBCUs know this, ladies and gentlemen. They are very well aware of the history and how chummy the Department of Education is, both with the lenders and with the colleges. So this opposition that we're seeing from the HBCUs is purely political. And the HBCUs were supposed to be fighting for their constituents, who happen to be people of color. And instead, we're seeing them sell their constituents down the road, down the river, and for no good reason, for no tangible, no real reason. And we saw the Black Congressional Caucus 10, 15 years ago do the same thing with the gainful employment rule. Like, all these for-profit colleges were up in arms. And quite frankly, I think the for-profit colleges pressured the Black Congressional Caucus to oppose and weaken the gainful employment rule. So that ain't right. I don't care what color your skin is. That is not right. You're supposed to be fighting for your people. If you're the NAACP, you're supposed to be fighting for the advancement of colored people. If you're a historically Black college and university, your constituents should be very important to you. So here we see the HBCUs playing politics with the livelihoods of their alumni and their students, and fighting against them rather than for them. So I don't know. I don't think I'm going to say much more about that I hope they change their mind. They haven't publicly said anything yet. So I hope that they will get right on this issue very quickly. But certainly, if you have any strong connection with an HBCU or others, maybe friend of a friend, whatever your situation may be, by all means, please do everything you can to push HBCUs to get off the stick and quit holding this legislation hostage. There's 38 million distressed student loan borrowers in the country, of all colors, by the way. This is not a racial thing. And I just think it's the most disgusting thing in the world that a couple of little groups in Washington, D.C. Apparently have the power to hold our livelihoods and lives, in some cases, hostage for their petty, inconsequential little political swamp concerns. Frankly, it's suspicious to me. And I hope that we'll see the HBCUs come around very soon, because, ladies and gentlemen, the clock is ticking. Early voting begins like in the next week or two, like in the next 10 days. Early voting is going to begin. And ladies and gentlemen, if the Democrats do not abide by their own platform, and if the Democrats fail again to return bankruptcy rights to student loans during this very exceptionally rare opportunity to do that, when they have control of the House, they have control of the Senate, and they control the presidency. If the Democrats fail us again, first time was in 2008, 14 years of pain and anguish have been added on to our debt sentence because of the Blue Dog Democrats back in 2008. If the Democrats screw us again, they should have no good reason to expect that they're going to do anything but get clobbered in the midterm elections. This thing Biden did, it was a gimmick. It was a gimmick. It was tricky. It's a gimmick. And 70% of the people on our group were not impressed at all. So the Democrats have a lot riding on this issue. And make no mistake, guys, 38 million people is the largest untethered voting bloc politically in modern U.S. history. You know, we saw even Joe Biden's lame little loan cancellation within 10 days of that, including the very first day we saw a spike, but it climbed from there. The Democrats gained 2 percentage points in polling over the Republicans. So much depends